So here we have what is sure to be a heated discussion around the subject of Game Pass. Now, Game Pass gets talked about all the time from the developer standpoint, from the consumer standpoint. We talk about Game Pass literally all the time. The reason why is because when bad games go to die on Game Pass, they want to blame Game Pass and they don't want to blame how bad the game actually is. When good games go to die on Game Pass, come to find out people actually like good games, and most of the time they get supported outside of Game Pass and they get purchased and kept and brought home. I'm looking at you, Oblivion Remastered. I'm looking at you, Expedition 33. I'm looking at you, Stalker 2, even Starfield. All of the games that have been either have a lineage behind them or come to find out were good games, they got bought after being on Game Pass. Starfield is probably the one that's like, not really a good game, but it has the lineage of Bethesda, so you kind of could throw that in there. But in any case, we are talking about Game Pass today because Arkane Studios founder brands Game Pass as unsustainable and damaging to the entire gaming industry. And it's not even just him. There are multiple developers talking out about this, one of which is actually one of the ones over at Larian Studios, the guys behind Baldur's Gate 3, another massively successful game. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Game Pass overall, what I think about it, what other people think about it, what these developers think about it. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. And if you are an Xbox shill, please, I beg of you, nobody is attacking your golden goose. Please relax. If you're watching this video and you're an Xbox fan, whatever that means these days, relax. Nobody's attacking your golden goose. It's fine. You can still subscribe to Game Pass and your games will be there until they're eventually removed and cycled out. It says it's no big secret that not everybody agrees with Game Pass operating model. Historically, the service has come under fire for not doing as much for developers, especially smaller ones, than everyone might at first assume. Now, one thing I will say is that a lot of people assume, and I get this all the time from like Xbox super fans, they'll be in my comments and be like, oh, you're attacking South to Midnight and you're using Steam numbers as an example, but Steam numbers don't matter. It's a thing that they constantly say to cope with the fact that a lot of their games do bad. And they say these things, but then you look and you find out, oh, the studio's laying people off. Oh, wow, this Xbox is laying people off. I guess they're not as rich as everybody thinks they are. Obviously, Microsoft is, but Microsoft is probably doing some level of subsidization to continue to try to make Game Pass into a success. But yes, I would get comments on videos like South and Midnight whenever I would talk about it. They'd be like, well, it doesn't matter because, the game's on Game Pass and that's why it's a success. And I'm like, bro, listen, you have developers that get paid a small amount of money to get their game be put on Game Pass. If they're an indie studio, maybe that'll be a big deal to them. Maybe. But South of Midnight had a huge budget considering what eventually came out from it. But if you're a AAA studio, you're probably hardly going to notice the money that gets given to you from Game Pass. But anyway, let's talk about what they specifically have to say about this. One prolific personality recently took to social media to point out how the Game Pass service isn't all it's cracked up to be. Enter Raphael Colantonio, founder of Arkane Studios and creative director of most of the studio's games, such as Dishonored and Prey. He doesn't like Game Pass, and he's not alone. Now, me personally, I love Dishonored, love those games. Prey wasn't really a super fan of. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. It was kind of just in between for me. In a post on social media, Raphael suddenly asked why nobody is talking about the elephant in the room, presumably in the wake of the recent Microsoft layoffs that heavily impacted Xbox and many associated studios. You know why people aren't talking about the elephant in the room? Is because those people rely on Game Pass as an excuse for why their bad games failed. That's basically it. They don't want to actually talk about Game Pass because, let's be real, they need Game Pass, right? Game Pass allows it to say 1 million players engaged, or Game Pass allows them to say 3 million players engaged. And then when everybody asks them, hey, so how many copies did you sell? They're like, 4 million players engaged. They try to do everything they can to try to just bounce off of that question that always gets asked every time they start marketing in this very disingenuous way. And services like Game Pass allow them to market in a disingenuous way. It allows them to convince everybody that an XYZ game is a massive success, and you're stupid if you think otherwise. When the truth is, most of the games that have a lot of players on Game Pass probably don't have a lot of sales and most likely are struggling to make their money back. That's just how it goes. It's sad, but that's just what it is. So let's read his post on social media, who apparently he didn't hold back, which is hilarious. I think Game Pass is a unsustainable model that has been increasingly damaging the industry for a decade, subsidized by Microsoft's infinite money. But at some point, reality has to hit. I don't think Game Pass can coexist with other models. They'll either kill everyone else or give up. An hour later, his analytical perspective was joined by Michael Dowse, Larian Studios publishing director. He says, what happens when all that money runs out is the most vocal concern. In my network, one of the main economic reasons people I know haven't shifted to its business model, the infinite money thing never made any sense. Now, again, you have companies that have what is seemingly endless supplies of money to subsidize something that is very important to them for whatever that reason may be. Microsoft is definitely one of them. Microsoft, the richest company in the world, is able to subsidize Game Pass no matter how bad it's doing. It really doesn't matter. Game Pass could be losing them millions of dollars. It means absolutely nothing. They will subsidize it because they want it to succeed and they want to go for the long haul. Same thing with Twitch. Twitch has never made any money, right? Twitch has always been a money losing platform. However, Twitch gets subsidized by Big Daddy Amazon, right? Amazon, infinite money glitch, just like Microsoft. They subsidize Twitch every single month without fail, as that company loses money every single month without fail. And if it wasn't for Amazon, Twitch would be dead by now. Twitch wouldn't even be able to do half of what they're currently doing right now for their favorite terrorist organization. So then it says the pair touched on cannibalizing of sales, which is one of the core concerns of Game Pass. If a developer or publisher launches a game exclusively on Game Pass, nobody technically pays for their game, except for Microsoft paying to get it on the catalog. Dowse had admitted that it's a good thing for de-risking projects for smaller teams, but the buck stops there. He did then point out that Sony's lifecycle management way of working is much more preferable. Colantonio then suggested that Game Pass should be a back catalog product only. That's how it doesn't hurt anyone. Now, when it comes to PlayStation Plus, I do feel like it is the inferior of the two, for the simple fact that Game Pass is just way too good for the average consumer, right? The average consumer, sadly, doesn't actually care about owning their games. I know it's shocking to a lot of people that are hearing this right now. They're like, what? Stop killing games. Just got 1.2 million signatures. What do you mean? The simple truth is that there are hundreds of millions of gamers out there. 1.2 million signatures. Sure, that is absolutely a lot, but the vast majority are filled with fucking mega normies that just don't care. They prefer convenience over anything else, and they've been trained, especially Xbox players, have been trained to not own their games. Xbox players have been trained over the last few years to get used to owning none of their games. Ubisoft would have a wet dream if they were able to get the majority of Xbox players, because they're all exactly where the corporate mindset wants them to be, which is I'll pay $50 to $20 a month. I'll get day one access to AAA games that are too expensive at $80. Totally not planned by the corporation, by the way, that overprices the games to push you to subscriptions. But neither here nor there. Anyway, that's exactly where they want you. They want you in that mindset of, I rather pay the cheaper option, even though it's worse for me as a consumer. I'll convince myself that it's not and move on with my life. Now, in terms of subscription services, yes, Game Pass is the best out of all of them. There's no doubt about it. If Game Pass were to back away right now from offering day one games, there would be a civil war. I'm not even kidding. That's the problem with something like Game Pass. The moment you commit to that as a business model, there is no way to back out. There's no way. You cannot offer something that good and then take it away and expect people to stay subscribed, expect people to keep paying you money. There's no way. So this is why they continue to get subsidized, and this is why they continue to double down on Game Pass. Xbox is in it for the long haul. They don't care about the hardware. For them, everything's an Xbox. This is why when I say, hey, what does an Xbox fan even mean at this point? Because according to Xbox, everything's an Xbox. What used to be the console only, well, that doesn't matter anymore. Now, every little thing is an Xbox. Down to your phone, they want to make an Xbox. Your toaster is going to be an Xbox. So it really doesn't have an identity anymore. So it makes you wonder, again, they just want to stick to Game Pass. That's their goal. That's their end game. And they will do everything they can to subsidize that goal and to see it through. But you guys can ultimately let me know what you think in the comments down below about Game Pass. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a good business model? Do you think it's a bad business model? And if so, either or, let me know why you believe this to be the case. If you guys enjoyed this video, special thanks to all of you for watching. And if you didn't enjoy it, well, I mean, it is what it is. And I hope to see you guys on the next one.